This is the Configure Checkout Options screen where you can see various different options for configuring the checkout page. I'm just going to show you each one of these and go through each one and explain a little bit more about what you can do here. So we've got the checkout configuration section first. The first option here is Show SSL Seal on Checkout Page. So if I just show an example checkout page here, this is for our oneshades.com demo store. You can see at the top here we've got the green bar secure. That's because the checkout page is secured by SSL security, and that means you can see the padlock there, and it shows green bar. It depends what browser you're on and how you've got your browser set up as to whether the actual green color is displayed. But if you have, for example, Internet Explorer by default settings, you will see that there, and the padlock is always displayed when you're on a secure page. And then if you scroll down to the bottom of this page, the secure certificate we use is by a company called VeriSign, which you may have heard of. They're a very kind of well-known security secure company on the internet. And there's this bit down the bottom here is called a secure seal, and it just shows that the page has been secured by VeriSign. So that first option is just whether that seal, which is essentially an image, will appear on the checkout page. So the second one here, we've got Show Continue Shopping button and Show Return to Basket button. If we take another look there, you can see there's various buttons at the top. We've got Return to Basket there, Continue Shopping. You can select whether they're displayed on your checkout page. And now allow different delivery address. If you want to allow your customers to select a delivery address that's different from their billing address, then you tick that box there. And if you do tick that, then you'll see that the delivery fields come underneath the billing address. So we've got here billing address, delivery address, and there's a link there as well that says click here if the same as above. So the customer doesn't, if they are the same, the customer doesn't need to retype everything. They just click on that link and it copies the top information down to the delivery address. So the next option is ask if the customer would like the invoice sent to the delivery address, and that just appears as a tick box. You'll see down here, send invoice to delivery address. And if we go back to this screen, show confirm email field for email validation. One problem that you might get from time to time is that customers mistype their email addresses, and you really don't want that, because obviously you're going to use their email address to send them, well, they'll be automatically sent the confirmation email, and you really want them to receive that. So it's important that they enter their email address correctly. So you can have this field, this email field here, you see, so they enter their email address in the first field, and then basically they have to enter their email address again in the second field, and if they're not the same, then they won't be allowed to continue and will be asked to correct their email address. And interestingly as well, you can't cut and paste into that second field, you have to retype it. Okay, so the next option is to show the company name field, and if we look at the top of the billing address here, we've got the company name field, and also at the top of the delivery address. And then if we move on to the next section here, remember the customer details for their next purchase. Now, one of the most really useful things you can do with RomanCart is it's really simple. There's just a tick box down here which says tick this box to remember your details for next time. So that means if a customer buys from you, then when they next come to buy from you, this information will already be filled out for them, so they don't need to retype it all. And that's great. You know, that can increase sales just because it makes it easier for customers to buy from you. And using this option here, you can either switch that off completely, or you can only allow the billing address to be remembered, or you can allow both the billing and the delivery address to be remembered. Okay, so the next section, allow non-tangible items to be purchased with all payment methods. This does not include downloadable products. So if you're selling non-tangible items, in other words, products that you're not actually going to ship, then you can specify whether they can be purchased with all payment methods. In other words, they could buy them with like check payment or offline payment methods. It just enables all of the payment methods to do that. Terms and conditions URL. If you've got terms and conditions, then you want to enter the URL starting HTTP for your terms and conditions there, and then the customer won't be able to proceed until they've ticked a box to say that they agree with your terms and conditions. Now in this next field here, you can ask how customers heard of your site. This is really useful. You really want to be doing this because, you know, one of the most important things about marketing is finding out which of your marketing methods are actually working. And so you enter details in there. It'll appear on a drop-down box there, and they can select those, or they can enter a different source of how they heard about you in that box there. Okay, so now the next one is, there's a couple of options here: generic order complete URL, order success URL, and order failed URL. Okay, so essentially what this means is If you're using a payment gateway, if the payment that the customer makes is successful, then they will be taken to this page here, which you want to create a page on your website that says, like, thank you for your order. If you have any questions, phone us on this number or whatever. If the order has failed for whatever reason and they get taken back to their website, then it will go to this order fail URL, or whatever you enter in there. So in other words, that needs to be a URL of a page on your website that says something like, oh, I'm sorry, there was a problem with your order. Please give us a call on this number to confirm the details. And also, that's with payment gateways where the cart knows whether the order is successful or not. But with a number of payment gateways such as check and cash, the cart obviously doesn't know whether the order was successful or not. So when the customer clicks on the continue button after completing the payment, that will just take them to a generic URL. You might put the home page in that, or you might just put a generic page saying thank you for your order. It's entirely up to you. So the next page here is bypass order complete continue screen. Now, once you submit, once you go through a payment gateway and you pay for the transaction, it takes you back to a page on RomanCart where you can print off the invoice, and there's a continue button on it to go back to your website. If you tick this box here, that page will be bypassed completely. And when your customers return from the payment gateway, they will jump straight to the URL that you've entered in the respective box above. Okay, tick to break out a frame set for PSP. PSP means payment gateway, really, payment service provider. So this depends on how you're using your how you've designed your website. And you want to consult with your web designer about whether you need to be using this option. But essentially, if you've got frames on your website, then you're going to have to break out the frame set. Either for the payment gateway or even for the checkout, which is the option before. One of the most important things about that is because as I mentioned before, RomanCart, the checkout page runs on SSL secure web space, where you see the padlock and stuff. And so if you've got that shown within a frame set on your website, then your customers won't see the padlock unless the entire frame set is secure as well. So you really want to be showing customers that your pages are secure, and so if you're using frames which aren't secure, then you need to break out the frame set at some point. But you want to talk to your web designer about whether or not you need to use that if you've got frames. So use the Sales Manager invoice format on completion page. As I mentioned before, on the completion page, there's a link where you can print off an invoice, and if you tick this box here, it will be the invoice in the format of the invoice that you can get from the Sales Manager by clicking on the View button in the invoice column. Okay, my advice would be to tick that because it's like a proper invoice, but that's up to you. If you don't do that, it shows you an invoice in the format of the email. Okay, so show IP address. Again, you really want to tick that because that just kind of adds to security. When you go to the checkout page, it just says, this is your IP address. So just scrolling down here, you can set fields to be mandatory. We've got county field, postcode field, telephone field, and delivery telephone field as well. And the source field, you can set all those whether they're mandatory or not. The title field, as you can see, this is where we've got Mr., Mrs., Miss, Ms or Doctor. You can specify that to either be a drop-down list, which is what you've seen there. You can have no title field at all, or a free text field where they can just enter whatever title they like. And finally, passed-in details are read-only. Now this is for advanced users. There's a situation where you can actually, if you're collecting the name and address of your customers on your actual website, then you can post that data with your add to basket buttons or links to RomanCart. And if you do that, ticking this box will make that information on the checkout read only, so they can't change it. If you have it unticked, then they will still be able to edit that information on the checkout page.